Significant highlight and important element of my life that's changed my life really is having my three lovely children. And I wouldn't replace that for the world. You've got to execute. You've got to take that first risky step and get on and do it.
Hello everybody, welcome to episode 4 of the Communicode podcast. Today we are here with Neil Laughton. We're going to ask him in a second to introduce himself a little bit because there's so many things I could say, but I'll probably forget so many things as well. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about exploration, adventure and various different things. So just introduce yourself if you'd like, Neil. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi Harry and Jacob, very nice to meet you, and I obviously know you quite well, Harry. My name's Neil. I identify as an adventurer, but I pay for my addiction of adventure, travel, sport and adventure around the world by attempting to be a business guy. So I have a few companies that I've founded and trying to run and make money and do fun stuff, which I think makes me an entrepreneur. So, my passion is adventure, as you know, and I love to travel. I love to organise expeditions in different parts of the world. And you're here at my home, South Cole House, which is named after Mount Everest. And I'm married, quite old, but you're never too old to keep being adventurous, which I'm sure we'll discuss. And I have 3 teenage children, all going through school, and one about to go to university. So I'm cash poor at the moment.
Yeah, we'll get on to that about like your children, and because obviously our audience is a lot kind of like around young people. So yeah, we wrote a few questions, and usually for the first part we kind of talk a little bit about. We tend to ask the same questions to the same people, and the second will be a little bit more about you and yourself. The first question we would ask is, could you tell us a story from your childhood that made you who you are today?
Well, I could tell you that I was at a reasonably posh school, but it was the 70s, so a long time ago, when we had lots of bullying going on at school. We had a thing called corporal punishment, which was where you get thrashed by canes, wooden sticks, rulers, and all sorts of other nasty punishment implements, normally on the backside, after you'd done some bad stuff at school. And I was one of those kind of naughty kids.
Did that happen to you?
Yeah, for sure. I got expelled, and I was doing experimentation with. I ran the sweet shop. So one of the benefits of running the sweet shop is that not only you make a little bit of money. That's probably where I got my entrepreneurial drive and experience from. Age 16, but. I would take the tubs of fizzy bomb sugar that lay in the bottom of the empty sweet jars, and I was trying to ferment alcohol. So I would get into a bit of trouble, and on one occasion I organised a massive alcoholic rave.
Wow!
By the way, it's not the story I'm supposed to be telling you, but it's my introduction to the story. Right. And of course, everyone got really quite pissed and. Staggering around the campus, and obviously when interrogated by the teachers, my name came up quite a lot. So I was in front of the headmaster with my trousers down, getting 8 with a cane, which was the maximum corporal punishment. But and we'd have things like fagging, which was a terrible thing, where the young boys would have to clean the rooms of the senior boys, and sometimes worse. So my school life was pretty grim. Anyway. The story I was going to share with you is at a similar time frame, is that my dad, who much like I'm sure you guys look up to your dads, was a hero of mine. He was a Navy captain and in charge of an aircraft carrier, believe it or not, that happened to be exercising in the Solent, the English Solent, and my school's in Sussex, so not that far away. And one day. I was told to pack an overnight bag and, invite 2 of my best mates to come with me. And my dad organised for a helicopter to land in the school playground and we were whisked away onto the moving ship of this aircraft carrier in the English Channel, and spent 3 days on board. Missed all our school lessons, maths and English, which is the reason why I failed all my exams, obviously. But it changed my life, because that was an inspirational moment where I didn't want to join the Navy. I mean, I got seasick and all that, but this aircraft carrier had a troop or a squadron of Royal Marines who were exercising on the aircraft carrier, and what they were doing was, you know, they would run onto the deck of the aircraft carrier, jump into the helicopters, and then they would go off for a mission with their rifles strapped behind their backs and camouflage faces and look really tough. And then like 3 hours later, the helicopters would come back. They would hover over the deck of the aircraft carrier 30 foot up. The ropes would come out, and these guys would sort of fast rope down onto the deck, scurry off into the... And I went, oh my God, I need to be one of those people. And that inspired me to ultimately to join the Royal Marines as a young officer. Yeah. And that changed my life.
Did you need any like qualifications to get into the Royal Marines? Like...
Well, you did. As a young officer, I was expected to follow in my dad's footsteps as an officer. I mean, I would have joined as a Marine, no problem. But you know, there's some expectation that with a good education and the right exam passes, which was a struggle, you know, with a public school background, you go down the officer route, and so there was stress, there was anxiety to get all those exams passed. But then, of course, you've got to pass all the officer selection, the leadership tasks with the Admiralty Interview Board, which is terrifying as aged 18. You know, and then you've got to go down to Laughton, the Commando Training Centre, and you're amongst other potential officers for a 3-day assessment. Everyone scrutinising you, looking at you, seeing how you interact with people as a team player, but also have you got leadership qualities at 18. And so it was you know, a tough apprenticeship, but somehow they saw potential in me, and I got one of the 5,000 places or applications of the 16 that were granted every year. One out of, you know, I was picked, so that was that.
And here we are. And now I don't know if like the audience can see, but there's literally a whole. This is the doghouse, and everything. You can't see the walls, because there's so many different things.
These are all the trips and expeditions, you know, incredible. Little mementos and a few trinkets from around the world, which, you know, when I'm bored, I can come in and reminisce, and in my dotage, and you know, when I've got Alzheimer's, hopefully it'll remind me that I used to be an adventurer and an explorer.
I was going to say, it must be so hard to remember all the stories. So you've got here, it's a big.
Well, I mean, I'm really fortunate. Yes, I mean, I haven't had. I had a bit of an episode with my health last year with the big C, but hopefully recovered. Thankfully, I think I've still got. I mean, your young audience will know at the end of this interview, if I drone on and ramble, maybe they might assume I have dementia, but I don't think I suffer from Alzheimer's.
Yeah, honestly, we ramble on for the most of this podcast anyway.
Well, I know your dad rambles on. You know, John Richards.
Yeah.
I was sharing a story with Jacob earlier about doing a podcast with John, and after an hour and 45, he said, that's the introduction done.
Yeah. It's just crazy. No, hopefully ours won't go on for as long as that. But
you got Jacob here to keep you under
control.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I take after my dad.
Following your dad's footsteps.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on. Is that the first question answered?
Yeah. Leads on quite well.
Question one's been done.
Yeah, question one. Yeah, so we've only got a few more. No.
Yeah, so obviously you've done very much in your life, and you've achieved great things, and you've had so many different experiences. But what person are you? Like, what sort of person are you, would you say?
That's quite a good question, and a tough question, I think. What type of person? You know, the person that you are is probably the person different to the person that you'd like to be. Mm-hmm. So quite a tough question to answer. I think you probably have to ask others. But I like to think that I'm somebody who gets things done. I'm quite strong on ideas. So I have good curiosity, but I then have the courage to take action. And so, that's one thing that I try and help others achieve that status, because that brings opportunity, it brings fun, and it brings hopefully a little bit of achievement and success vis-a-vis goal setting and realizing one's goals. And it does require some, characteristics, traits, if you like, that are required. Yeah. And I like to think I'm fairly driven. I'm very, very determined. The only reason I got into the Marines and served with Special Forces and all that is because of my determination. And all the organisations like Marines, Special Forces, they put a lot of emphasis on independence, self-discipline, bit of humility and humour, and the never-ending pursuit of excellence is one of the Special Forces mantras. And there's an element of self that one has to organise. Get yourself squared away, military term, first. Bit like when the aircraft pressure in a jumbo jet, look after, put the mask on yourself first. So I think you follow it in that kind of philosophy. Get yourself fit, get yourself sorted out mentally, physically, psychologically. Then you're in a position of strength to help others. And I like to think I'm pretty centered. I come up with good ideas and positive ideas. I'm a very optimistic person. I believe until you actually fail miserably, you've got a good chance of success. Yeah. And so that's my mantra. Be curious, be courageous, and get out and do stuff. Yeah. And absolutely. I bring people with me, and I'm not a soloist. I've never done none of these expedition mementos behind me. Is ever me doing anything solo. I always work with other people. I try and encourage others to come out and join me on these expeditions, trips, and adventures. And that's in part what I love, sharing these experiences with others.
There's definitely some great qualities and skills to have, like sort of not even restricted to adventures or whatever, to literally every sort of part in your life, isn't it? Really, it's such so good to be.
We definitely try to encourage. Like, I strongly am a big believer of having discipline. I think. Because there's a lot that you don't want to do in life. Like, there's always things that you don't want to do, but you kind of have to do it anyway. Yeah. And I think that's what our generation struggle with a lot, because it's never been so easy to be comfortable and so easy to not do anything. Yeah. But at the same time, I think conversely, like, it's never been so quote unquote easy to excel and like to really get into like the top 10%, because so many people are not doing much and are very satisfied with very little, and that's fine. But I think when you hear people like yourself that have obviously done things that have stuff like determination, and it's surprisingly uncommon in our generation to see that. And I think, I just think to be able to have people that can kind of talk about that, and they have like amazing social proof of all of these things that they've done, it's really inspiring. And it kind of leads quite well onto our next question, which is, has your life so far disappointed you or exceeded your expectations?
Look, I don't think there's anybody on the planet whose life has gone sweetly according to plan. We all have ups and downs, don't we? If I look back, I've got some bits that you would do differently, decisions I made that I'd rather have done differently. Yeah. And as a result, I've made mistakes, and sometimes they're costly, sometimes they nearly ended in disaster. Yeah. But if I look in the round, if I look as a general, I'm actually super happy with how things have shaped up and gone. And so to answer your question slightly more briefly than some of the other answers, I'm super happy with and satisfied with my life as it is and has been.
Amazing.
I guess it's those mistakes as well which really sort of make you grow and sort of think, oh, I shouldn't do that again, sort of thing. And I mean, you could have saved lives from not having made a mistake in the future, I guess. Yeah. Maybe.
Yes, look, if you don't take a risk, you're never going to stretch. Exactly. You're never going to push yourself. And, you can get into bad habits, bad routines. You do need discipline. You're right, Harry. I think it's important to recognise, and everyone likes to lie in, but I look at my kids and go, come on guys, it's fucking 12 o'clock in the afternoon. You should be out of your bed experiencing life now. you've had 10 hours sleep. Like, get out and
especially with the marine stuff as
well.
Do
you know what I mean? I don't remember being that lazy.
I nearly said it, but then,
well, maybe it's just something to do with our generation. But it just sort of instills like all this like sort of cloud and noise coming from online and stuff.
There's
really,
so many distractions.
I mean, I know my daughters are in bed most of the time. You know, I go in, knock, and you know, they're on their they're on their social media, and yes, it's a modern generational trait. I'm not necessarily agree that it's that beneficial. I think people are definitely spending too much time on the screen. I mean, I spend too much time on my screen, and I'm an old geezer. You know, my daughters particularly just spend too much time on it. It's just simple as that. And they're missing out. They're not smelling the fresh air. They're not kicking a ball about. They're not, you know, having their eyes out. Also, you know, when we drive in the car, you know, they're also on their phone. Look at the world outside. You know what I mean? So it's difficult. I do understand. It's a distraction. It's engaging. It's addictive. It's interesting, or potentially more interesting than the real world out there. But I try and wherever possible encourage people to open their eyes and, like you say, be curious and question and just look around. And, you know. What I think is really important for young people now is not to forget that the root of success is being able to look people in the eye and you know, engage and communicate with other human beings. That way you'll succeed. If you become an expert, you may be great and earn lots of money on the new AI and all the rest of it, but I don't think you'll be as satisfied as having real human communication relationships with other humans.
And I guess it's more the hardships and the hard times that really bond people, isn't it? So I guess you've been through so many hard sort of situations with people, which has made people's relationships closer, and you know,
you bet, absolutely, 100% right. And you know, it's not always expeditions. I mean, yes, I look at my closest friends; they're all forged from hardship, you know, deprivation, so to speak, in terms of, you know, suffering cold, hot jungles, deserts, mountains, and those experiences just pull people together. You know, you rely on your next door neighbour in the tent to give you some help and support. Might be physical, might be a tub of cream. In my case, on the last expedition, terrible rash. Not that sort of rash, Harry. You know, nasty sort of abrasive rash. You know, and I didn't have the right cream, but my expedition tent mate lent me the tub of cream, solved the problem, and helped me carry on climbing the mountain. You know, stuff like that, and it just pulls you together as human beings, and that's where trust is born, relationships are forged, laughter. It's not looking at social media, TikTok reels.
Absolutely, and like we've got a couple of questions before that, but I just want to skip to it now. What do you, for our generation, what do you fear might be the big kind of risks of social media for young people going forward?
Well, I mean, I just think that if you spend most of your waking hours looking at a screen, not only are you going to ruin your eyes, but more importantly, you're going to miss the opportunities that present themselves in what I would call the real world. You know, looking outside, being outside, having relationships with other human beings from an old-fashioned perspective. And, you know, you might well get a great job in AI or online, social media as an influencer, a digital nomad, or whatever it is, the latest terminology. But, you know, it still requires those old-fashioned human relationships that in there for people to succeed. You won't get to be a leader, an influencer of the old school type by being an expert on your screen.
Totally, yeah. It does definitely take away like social skills, and I think probably in this day and age we've never had so many problems with things like social anxiety in general. People that you know like. In terms of just so many mental health issues, and that is such a huge factor with social media.
Since like COVID as well, when everyone's been on Zoom.
So many people didn't have a choice, did they?
Yeah, well, I had a job over the summer, and it was all online. Even though COVID's now not long gone, but the
it doesn't even
lockdowns
feel
all but long gone, that they're still all online.
Yeah, it was like a huge transitional period, wasn't it?
You'd be working with someone every day, and I'd never even seen their face.
Yeah, it's crazy.
In 2 months I was working there, which is mental.
Yeah,
because you can never really have a proper relationship with someone unless you know what they look like, especially if you spent time with them in real life, and it's really damaging. I think
it is.
I think you're right. The old-fashioned meeting over the coffee machine, walking up a hill at the weekend with friends. That if that doesn't happen, then it can only be detrimental, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. A bit more about yourself. What are the things that you have to prioritise and function to stay well? So what are the things that are kind of like your non-negotiables in your life?
Wow. Well, I think for me, having something to look forward to is really important. So, if I'm not a 9 to 5 kind of guy, but were I a 9 to 5 kind of guy, I think my desire to have a challenge or a number of things in my world, it's adventurous journeys that inspire me. So, unless I've got 1 or 2 irons in the fire, plans for adventures that I'm organising, preparing, I think I'd be pretty depressed.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's having something to look forward to. I think that's a concept that can be stretched to other areas of life for other people. Health is obviously hugely important. I mean, I have been very lucky and healthy over my life, but last year I suddenly got prostate cancer. I had to deal with that, dealt with it positively, and expedited that. It's obviously recent days has been brought to life with a sporting legend who also got it, and terminal, sadly. But it's like you deal that half glass full rather than half glass empty approach to life. I think is really important, and that would be another thing that's important is just be positive as much as you can and optimistic.
Yeah.
And I tell people to get out of bed and like we discussed and put some energy into life and their existence and the things that they're doing and be enthusiastic as well. So those are kind of things that you can tell from my demeanor. I'm somebody who takes action, comes up with ideas, engages and gets out there and actually has the courage to do it, to do it, and have the organisational skills to make it happen. Yeah,
I'm really excited to get on to the second part to talk a bit about some of the mental stuff that you do that would be normal for you, but for us it's just crazy.
We've got our last question in part 1 now. So Neil, when are you happiest?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, look, my passion is adventure, so I suppose when I'm not in dangling off a death-defying rope or peak, I'm happiest when I'm in a tent on the side of a mountain and I've got a cup of hot chocolate in hand and everything's cool, got a great vista and view, the team's happy. We've either about to achieve our objective or we have achieved our objective and we're relaxing and I just come back from Nepal with a successful expedition. We summited the 95th highest mountain in the world, and with a bike, and got the world record for the highest bike ride. And I remember, a couple of nights later, we were in the tent with all of our Sherpa support team, and the rest of my team, and it was just a big party. We had a cake was made at base camp, with icing and candles. Somebody produced a bottle of whiskey.
What happened after that? We don't know.
I don't remember what happened much after that, but somebody else brought some cigars from Havana.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So we had whiskey, cake, cigars, and just a lovely, trusted team of friends and support staff, Sherpas. We had a great party, and that's when I was, in recent times, my most happiest.
Amazing.
That's what I sort of love about hearing about some of your expeditions and stuff, you'll always put a little twist on it. So you'll have like
Always a
a
twist.
game of cricket, or you'll always bring a sort of golf club to bring
golf
have a little
to the
game
North Pole.
game of golf. Or
Yeah, look, you've found my secret weapon. So, you know, what I discovered in life is if you want a bit of recognition, you want, and that brings not necessarily it's the recognition, but it's the help that you need to get others to join you on these ideas of adventure and travel. But actually, more importantly, the sponsorship. You know, it's you know,
It's
having
incredible.
an addictive hobby is quite costly, and one that involves travel, expeditions, and getting world records, for example, is not cheap. So unless you happen to be very rich, you've got to come up with ideas that you know, the media, TikTok or whatever will look good on social media, because that's the world now, isn't it? And not that I'm encouraging people to do more social media, but you know, coming up with a little twist, as you put it, is important, because it's that little spark that generates the interest from others, from potential sponsors, and of course from the media. And so whether it's the world's highest black tie dinner party, to the world's highest bike ride, to the
Easter Island or something.
the biggest number of penny farthing riders on a velodrome last weekend, you know, there has to be a little twist to get that interest.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Yeah. Right. Do you want to lead us, Jacob?
Yeah, so about part 2, and in this part we sort of talk more about your specialist area and where, you know,
Have I got a specialist area?
Well,
I would say
yeah.
I would say your specialist area is doing things that 99% of people wouldn't do, and you do it every single weekend. To be honest, well, like what you said last weekend.
Well, it's slightly weird, because actually, funny enough, I would class myself as very much a generalist, and somebody who loves variety and doing lots of different things. So I've consciously, you know, when I was your age, I had various opportunities. I could have stayed in the military. I could have, you know, I could have got a job in the adventure world, but I chose more of a rounded sort of different. You know, I'm a business guy. I'm an adventurer, ex-military. You know, family guy. Used to be single, but now family. You know, I like variety. I like trying new things and testing myself. So I would I wouldn't necessarily think that I have a specialisation unless you tell me otherwise.
Well, yeah, now you put it like that, I guess it.
No, you are right.
You are
I think it's probably because when I hear things from my dad and he says, "Oh, Neil's over in, I don't know, Neil's in Antarctica or something like that," it's so normal for me now because I know you. Sure. But I think for people that don't know you, that is like just incredible, and that's probably why I would say what I said in terms of the fact that you just you would seem different.
I'm not querying that. That's your perception of me, which is fine. Everyone's allowed their perception. But you know, it's also quite dangerous, because I think people can be put in a box, and most of us don't want to be put in a box. We should be you know, hopefully allowed to be in different boxes.
Yeah, that is very.
So
true.
it's a point to note.
Yeah,
not that I care, but do you know what I mean? There's other people who might be put in boxes that actually prefer not to be put in a box. So we need to be careful.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, you're right.
But go on, carry on with your question.
Yeah, so I'll ask. How did fatherhood? I want to talk just a little bit about fatherhood. How did fatherhood affect your adventure and your mentality of being determined and disciplined? And how have you instilled the values into your children, if any?
Yeah, so I think because I am so determined and focused on the things that I quite like to do, I probably, if I'm honest, rather selfishly, I've relied a bit too much. You know, maybe one of the mistakes I've made in my life is not devoting enough attention to my young children, vis-a-vis going off and climbing Everest when they were quite young. So maybe on reflection, I should have been less selfish. But to answer your question, therefore, I don't feel it really affected. I'm very lucky that I have the support of Caroline, my wife, and she's taken an overly extra burden on bringing the children up, I would say, because of my addiction to adventure, travel and sport, and life and challenges. And so I'm thankful, very grateful and thankful for that and the opportunity that that's provided. But if your question is, did I change my behaviour? Did I change my outlook to risk and adventure, sport and travel? Not really. How have I instilled it in my adventure, in my children? I'd like to think that, my characteristics, partly by gene and partly by induction or whatever the word is, by bringing them up in not only my wife's style of parenthood, but mine, hopefully some element of, not necessarily the things that I like doing have been rubbed off on them. I don't think that's the case anyway. But actually I like to think that I have this belief that you can have you don't have to be an adventurer, but you can have an adventurous mindset. And I'd like to think that the adventurous mindset I certainly would have maybe imbued in my children's growing up, and hopefully in their characteristics. I'll just qualify that quickly. I think somebody with an adventurous mindset has a number of traits and qualities and behaviours, and they are, first of all, curiosity, and second, courage to take your conviction to do things, as mentioned earlier. It's applying energy and enthusiasm to one's outlook and life. And finally, it's being resourceful, finding ways of problem solving and overcoming difficulties, and then resilience. That's the last quality important. There's plenty of them, but those 6 are the really key ones. Resilient in so much that you're tenacious, you don't give up, you don't quit early. So a recap: curiosity, courage, energy, enthusiasm, resourcefulness and resilience.
Wow.
Is the traits of an adventurous mindset, and that I think is hopefully a good message to share with others.
Absolutely.
That if you can work on those, you can practice those, you can set your alarm,
not wake up at 12
and get out of bed and take action, and do stuff, take your opportunities, spend a little less time on social media, on your phone, then you'll be working towards an adventurous mindset, which in my view is the key to success and happiness.
Really good answer. Thanks.
That's really good. So this next question sort of could be to do with anything, but we're going to ask you where were you at your lowest point and your highest point?
That's quite easy. There's been a few lots of highs and a few lows. The lowest point in my life, quite clearly, was I was 2 years into what I thought would be my long-term career in the Royal Marines as a young officer. Well, I was a young officer at the time. I was 19. My dad had been struggling from cancer, and ultimately he died. And I was 19 years old. I was in the Marines. It was a stressful, tough few years, and when he died, it hit me hard. He was my hero, as mentioned. And when you lose your dad at that sort of influential age, when you're kind of at the peak of your, entering the grown-up world under duress, as in being tested as a young Royal Marines officer, I didn't cope particularly well. I took some time off, had to support a younger brother and my mum grieving. And it really hit me hard, and I'd kind of lost my mojo, my confidence went, my self-esteem was impacted, and ultimately the powers that be in the Marines spotted that weakness, and there isn't any room for weakness in the Marines, and so I was booted out of the Marines, and that was very much my lowest point. I hadn't got an awful lot of money in the bank. I'd lost my career, my job. no money coming in. What to do? I had to go to London. Went to a charity shop, got a suit, did a salesman's course. I was miserable, utterly miserable for 2 or 3 years, till I regained my confidence, self-esteem, mojo. Put a money in the bank. I was quite good at selling, as it happened, but it wasn't really for me. But I then, regrouped, got my mojo back, and I was curious. I took a risk, courage, things I just mentioned, and I signed up for SAS selection to join the Special Air Service Regiment, only the toughest regiment to get into in the world, just to see whether I could carry on with stuff that I really, the challenge, I'm going to show you kind of response to that real low, and it paid off. Thankfully, I passed selection and served with the elite regiment that is the SAS, and that was obviously a high. Replaced the low, and I moved on.
Wow. You hear a lot about, well, I've certainly heard a lot about the sort of training and the exam stuff to get into more like the American sort of, the Navy SEAL. But is the sort of SAS sort of that tough as well? Sort of, I've heard, you've had a lot of stories, but
actually, to be honest, you don't need too many exams to get into the SAS.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I guess there's not really like written exams.
You need to have some of the qualities we were talking about earlier. Particularly focus, self-discipline. Yeah. You need to be humble. And the other quality is actually humour, is being able to laugh and be resourceful and resilient and never give up. Yeah. And you don't need too many O-level GCSEs to get into that element of the military. Yeah. But those qualities are important. If you don't have them, you ain't got any chance.
Yeah, well, I guess your team's as weak as the weakest member, I guess, isn't it? And if one person's not really with it, then it's bad for everyone.
Yeah, it's like that. If they don't pull their weight, then people have to do more, I suppose. And so it's like about having that accountability with each other, I guess. Yeah. So. And
look, I think people listening to that, not everyone's going to go in the military or want to go to the military, let alone the elite special forces stuff. But actually, the regiment I joined has a motto, and I think the motto is relevant for everybody in life. You'll know what it is, Harry. Who dares wins.
But yeah, our next question for you, Neil, is how would you advise young people, or anyone really, to start doing physically demanding challenges? And I'm sure this probably links in a lot with the 6 that you mentioned when it comes to an adventurous mindset. But yeah, that's kind of our question. Is there anything you could kind of add on to what you said?
Yeah, so there are some organisations out there that specialise, believe it or not, in opportunities for young people to go on adventures and expeditions. And I can share with you that at least 3 of those organisations are readily accepting young people any day of the week or that they choose. They are the British Exploring Society, the Scientific Exploration Society, and what used to be called Operation Rally is now called Rally International. And they all specialise in their communities of young people, and some people running them with grey hair like me, but they're all for the benefit of young people to be more adventurous, to go out on expedition, and to do good work around the world, science projects, saving the Amazonian yellow frog, whatever the project is, doing surveys on bird population, seal population, whatever, around the world. And some of these organisations are fabulous stepping stone to being more adventurous and having a life of travel, sport and adventure, if that's their thing.
Well, I thought it was very inspiring as well. I read about how you took a group of kids from London to walk across Africa. Is it Sinai, the Sinai Peninsula?
Yes.
I thought it was particularly really inspiring, because I thought that people
except
who
it's
never
Egypt, of course, but
But I thought it was like crazy how you could take these people who had never experienced anything like it to sort of put them through such a hard time, and you know the struggles they had and stuff like that was.
Yeah, so that is, in fact, you're talking about the British Exploring Society.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
So I worked for that charity as a volunteer for over 10 years, and I'm still involved with that charity. And in fact, I was with them last weekend, only 2 days ago, celebrating young people doing adventurous projects in Iceland, the Amazon, Ladakh in the Himalayan, Indian Himalaya. So a wonderful opportunity, and not a huge amount of money. You can fundraise to go on your expedition, or if you are a disadvantaged person without any money, there's also a program that I founded through this organisation, this charity, that funds your first expedition abroad. It's called the DNG program. And so, yes, for 10 years I was putting expeditions together for disadvantaged young people exclusively. We used to take up to 40 people on expedition every year, and one included an east-west crossing of the Sinai Desert in summer, so up to 50 degrees centigrade. We had 50 camels, 10,000 litres of water, and 40 young people from disadvantaged backgrounds crossed the Sinai Desert. It's never been repeated. And
a lot of things that you do
we had an extraordinary journey. Let me tell you.
Yeah, it's that mindset. It's like you're the only person that would think of doing such a thing, so it wouldn't be repeated. It's just like extraordinary.
Well, like I said,
stuff.
I like variety. So, you know, we did that, I think in 2013. In 2012, just after the Olympics, I hired I put my credit card down to put a deposit down for hiring a 367-foot tall ship, and we took these disadvantaged kids to Norway. We did some trekking in the hills, the Hardangervidda Plateau, and then we got on this tall ship and sailed back across the North Sea, and it was a really proud moment, actually. I organised for the Tower Bridge to open, you know, the big arches of the Tower Bridge. And we sailed into the city of London, moored next to HMS Belfast near the Shard in London Bridge. And I had 40 kids coming through Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock, underneath the Tower Bridge with thousands of commuters going, get out of my way, I want to go home. You know, they were all up in the rigging with not many safety harnesses.
Is there ever
60 foot up, you know, it was a bit of a risk, but I trusted them. They'd had a week or two's on this ship to get used to it, and it was just one of the best moments of my life, seeing these young kids, you know, from you know, rough estates and you know, no real role models in life, really finding their mojo and having the confidence now to go 60 foot up, and they can take that experience and then and I know many have taken that opportunity and are now got good jobs, they're earning good money, and they believe in themselves, they've got confidence, and they can they're smashing it. So
very rewarding.
Yeah, it definitely
for sure.
must be. It sounds like you kind of inspire people to go and do their own thing as well as integrate with the initial plans that you do for them. And I think that's a really inspiring thing and an encouraging thing, especially for our generation now, that there's offers like that. So it's not like you're always going to be pushed into this kind of like public agenda of like get into, you know, spend as much time as you can on social media because it's, you know, well, not necessarily good for you, but it's the right thing to do or whatever it is. And I think that is really encouraging.
Well, if there's anybody out there who, you know, listens to this and go, well, I think I'd like to push myself a little bit more, I ought to be a bit more adventurous, then, you know, there are places you can go, but you still need to be curious, you still need to have courage to take action and to apply and to look it up, you know, British Exploring Society or Scientific Exploration Society or Rally International, and take action.
Yeah.
Still takes all of those personal decisions and, you know,
that attributes,
ability to actually go, I'm going to do something about this and take action.
Yeah. Jacob.
Yeah, so our next question is a bit of a different one, to be honest. But I found from speaking to lots of people my age that they all just want to live elsewhere.
Yeah.
No one really wants to live in the UK in the future. And I just would love to hear. Obviously, you've been to so many different places. You've basically been to like most places in the world. Not most places, but you've been to most areas of the world. And why have you decided to settle down and live in the UK?
Well, yeah, I published a book last year called Adventureholic, and the subtitle was Extraordinary Journeys on 7 Continents by Land, Sea and Air. So they're all my favourite, exciting, daring and unusual expeditions with a twist, as you mentioned earlier. So yes, I have travelled a lot around the world, and I love travel, sport and adventure. It's my passion. It's become my passion. But why did I live in the UK?
As in, like, why did you? Because a lot of people sort of like, I want to live in Asia.
For example, obviously I'm going travelling for 3 months and I'm doing all the digital nomad things, and I think that when I get out there, I will want to live there. Just because of the lifestyle, it's not expensive. It's a beautiful place, lovely beaches, lovely water. Yeah. And I look here and it's raining outside, it's windy and things like that.
Yeah.
And that's why we thought we'd ask, because there is, I'm sure, in your experience, there's so many places where you've probably woke up, like you're saying, it's just stunning.
Yeah.
And I guess, obviously, I'm sure a lot of it contributes to your, of course, your wife and your children. But yeah, we kind of thought we would ask, like, would that have ever been a possibility of moving elsewhere or wanting to be somewhere else in the world apart from the UK more full time?
Yes, but only if my circumstances change, Harry. You see, I think there's a strong thing about home. Where home is, you've got to ultimately, unless you become a professional nomad, hermit or traveller, and I said before, I like variety, but I think there has to be a place where you can come back to. It is home. Yeah. It's what we describe as home, and I just happen to be English. I have lots of friends here, family here. My family's here. We live in Sussex, and so whilst I love to travel and I love to be in nice, warm, sunny climate, I'm afraid home is Sussex, UK, and it's just nice to be somewhere familiar, and not be traveling always in a suitcase. Otherwise that becomes the 9 to 5 in your life, and actually I think that's not too healthy either.
No, I think you are right about that. There's always that familiarity of where you grew up, where your real kind of origins are.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
I feel also in terms of like healthcare and all these different things in the UK, it's probably the best place to live in terms of like all rounding. It's just a really nice place to live, but it's just a shame that lots of people our age don't want to live here. And maybe that will change with time, but
yeah, I think a lot of it's due to exposure. Sorry to interrupt. I think a lot of it's due to exposure of like people see. I think everybody's very covetous in our generation, so everybody always is very glass half empty. Kind of what you were saying about being more glass half full. Everybody seems to be more glass half empty. So if they see a country that's sunnier, that isn't too hot, isn't too cold,
not
that
expensive
looks perfect.
to live,
exactly, yeah.
And there are lovely countries out there with all those qualities.
Yeah.
But I wonder whether for sure, go out and try it. And some people do. I know they emigrate to Australia and. They get the lovely sunshine and the beaches and stuff, but there's always a downside. There's always, I love Australia. I'm about to go on my 11th trip to Australia next year, but would I want to full-time live in Australia with Australians? Sorry, Australia. Do you know what I mean?
No, I do actually get that. Yeah, it's nice being around familiar people.
It's a difficult answer, but I would just say, look, for all the pros and cons of living in the UK, tax, Labour government,
things like that. There's always
things that don't work. There are always great things: NHS, free healthcare. There's
good
some great
quality as well.
Good education. Greenery,
Lake District, I suppose.
You spend 10 years in the Nullarbor Desert in Australia. I'm pretty sure you'd miss.
Yeah, I think so.
Lush green forests.
Yeah, you're right.
And football fields with grass on them rather than orange sand.
Yeah,
So I think there's pros and cons with everything. If somebody wants to go and live in Thailand because it's cheap and sunny and you can go... oh, sorry.
No, honestly.
If somebody wants to do that, then great, go and do it. Until such time that you're bored and you want to come back to family and friends in the UK.
Yeah, I think
what I have discovered is that, my version of travel, sport and adventure is kind of no more than 2 or 3 months. Normally it's sort of 3 or 4 weeks, and then I come back, and that for me is kind of it's long enough. And I enjoy coming back to family and my friends and a little bit of rain occasionally, but that's like I said, it's home. But I wouldn't stop anybody from going out and living in Thailand if that's what they want to do. Great, why not?
Yeah. So for the next question, we wanted to ask you, well, if there's a different one to what you've said in terms of your story so far, could you tell us a story or an experience that was the most life-changing? And that's kind of generic, like as face value, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, it's changed my life completely. But we kind of want something along those lines. And obviously your father died, and I'm sure that was very life-changing. I'm sure getting into the SAS was very life-changing. But maybe something that was perhaps more significant than that, if there is a story, or maybe as significant in a different stage of life.
That's a really tough question. I mean, I think the really significant moments in my life, I may have already shared with you, my father passing away. Turning my life around and getting into the SAS, testing myself in the commercial business world and kind of making a reasonable success of that. I like to think that I always wanted to. I did it quite late, but I always wanted to settle down and have children. So I think a significant highlight and important element of my life that's changed my life really is having my 3 lovely children, and I wouldn't replace that for the world. And I'd like to think that they've been given a pretty good start in life. Nice home and supportive environment, and hopefully instilled some of the qualities that Caroline and I think are important to them. They're following their own path, but hopefully we've given them a good setter, and just seeing them develop and turn into confident young people is a joy. And probably that's the answer I'd give you. As at this moment in time.
Great answer. Do you want to finish off with the last question?
Yeah. So for our last question, I guess maybe another bit of advice for young people. If you were like sort of our age now, what skills and sort of qualities would you learn and prioritise, and sort of what business would you go for, and what sort of area would you go into if you could do it again?
I'm not really qualified to advise, on career. I've had a few different types of careers. I would just probably advise people to try different things. One of the things I talk about on stages for when people pay me to share a few stories, I give people some tips on what I think are the important things in terms of success. How do you succeed in your goals? And they can be life goals, they can be career goals, it can be aspirational habits and hobbies type goals. But I think the success factors are all the same. Number one, the most important thing is ultimately the mission. The mission is your goal, what you're trying to achieve. And I just tell people, be really, really clear on what the mission is. Because you talk to people further down the food chain in any business, in any organisation, and sometimes they're really not that clear on what the mission is, what their goal is, what they're trying to achieve. And so, number one, be clear on the mission. Number two is purpose. If you can if you can understand the why you're doing something, why you're doing that mission, then that's going to be a powerful tool in your armory to success. So, for example, when I rode one of these penny farthings, 900 miles, Land's End to John O'Groats in Scotland, an awful, physically demanding challenge, really. My arse really hurt.
Yeah.
Every hour of that.
Don't go up hills that well, do they?
Every hour of that 11-day journey was agony. But the reason why I succeeded, and we raised quite a lot of money, incidentally, was because I was doing it to feed hungry children in Africa. That was my purpose. That was the why I was suffering on my penny farthing 900 miles from Land's End to John O'Groats, and that's what got me through to the end. So mission, purpose. The next is strategy. Look, it's a fancy word for having a plan. And a lot of people just float through life. They have habits. They go to the pub on a Friday. They set their alarm to get up at midday on Sunday morning. If you've got a plan to succeed, you've got a better chance, I think, of being successful. Fail to plan and prepare to fail.
It's like you.
So strategy is number 3. Number 4 is team. By that I mean either join a good team or hire a good team. In other words, get on a good team. Have the right people on the bus, on your rugby team, on your expedition team, in your business, and look after them. Team number 4. Number 5 is, if I can remember, number 5. I know number 6. Let me just think. Oh yeah, sorry. Execution is number 5. So by that I mean, you've got to take the decision to go. I tell the story of having the right resources, having the right plan, having a good purpose, and having a mission, vis-a-vis jumping in the standard bath, and crossing the Solent, the first person to do so in a bath with my mate John Bezic. I told you I never did anything.
We were talking about this yesterday.
Nothing solo. So that was a two-person mission to paddle a bath across the Solent. All right. You can have the greatest plan. In fact, the longest story is we failed miserably to make a bath made of ice to do the paddle. But I had a plan B. We jumped into a standard bath with flotation device and successfully paddled across the Solent. And the point is, at some point, you've done all the stuff, you know what your mission and purpose, you've got a plan. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You've got the right team. You've got to execute. You've got to take that first risky step and get on and do it. Okay? So execution number 5. And then finally, long answer, tenacity. All right? Tenacity is another word for resilience, which we talked about earlier. It's the concept of never giving up, being determined, being resilient and tenacious, meaning you won't give up too easily. So when the ice bath melts and you start swimming 100 yards offshore, yes, you've got a plan B, thankfully, if you've prepared properly and planned, but you don't give up.
Yeah, but I guess it
you
also
get on and do it.
That sort of thing is where another skill is to know where, even if you are so determined to, you have to do it. To be sometimes when it is going to be detrimental to your team if you still go ahead and do it. You've got to be like, right, okay, it's sensible now to maybe not do it now, but have that patience to be willing. Oh, I'm going to come back and do it, even if I can't do it now, and I can't complete it now, and I fail now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I agree with that. And actually, many of my big successes in life, military, second time round, business. I haven't shared with you any business stories, but I've had quite a few shortcomings in terms of my business career, and succeeded third time round. A lot of my expeditions look at climbing Mount Everest. I did it on the 3rd attempt. Highest bike ride, 2 attempts. The world's highest black tie dinner party for charity, 2nd attempt successful.
Yeah.
I say no more. determination, resilience, tenacity. Never give up.
Fantastic.
Well, yeah, Neil. So, thank you so much for coming on. We really are grateful, and we've taken so much from that. And I'm sure so many people who are listening now will take so much from that. So
I hope so. Thank you.
Yeah, if there's anything you'd like to say, or of course you have a book and
just whoever's watching, listening to this podcast, hopefully that's been useful, and I wish you all the best. But make sure, whatever it is you do, wherever you go and live as a digital nomad or whatever, just put a smile on your face and enjoy life. Life's short. Make the most of it. Good luck.